Okay, good morning once again. Just to continue the video, about 2 or 3 years ago, Chris Jones and I was actually on my way down to check my mailbox, and there was an elderly couple, a pastor and his wife. Dark skin. The pastor had on some really dark shades, and they were in the cafeteria. They had some KFC, which is what they always typically do. They would bring food. Food baits people in, and then they would start with their false doctrines. That happened so typically. I used to go in there and contend with them, not deliberately, that's in confrontational, but ask questions, and it was for the purpose of teaching others. But I had stopped doing that because, just like His Majesty said, leave them alone. They're just blind leaders of the blind. So I walked past the door, and the lady saw me, and she said something. She addressed me. Come on in and join. There are a few people in there. And I said, no, thanks. I said, I'm fine. And I went on to my mailbox. And when I returned from my mailbox, it was at the door. And she pretty much insisted that I come in. Long story short, I went in and I took a seat towards the back. There was a handful of other people in there, and they were sitting off to the side. And the man was just sitting there with his arms folded, dark shades, looking off to the side. And the woman was doing all the teaching. Anybody that knows me know I'm gonna speak out against that. So I'm looking at this, and she's teaching, she's reading and teaching and going up to the board. And then she asked the question, and as the Most High would have it, she asked me the question. Why would she do that? So, but she did. And my friend Chris Jones was there. I used to call him Appetite. I told you why I gave him that name. And I immediately told her, the very book you're teaching of prevents you from teaching. I said, he should be teaching, yet you're teaching. But nevertheless, Chris Jones had asked the question. They had that false name of Jesus in his mouth. And Chris Jones, who was new to the truth, mentioned Proverbs 30:4, about the son's name. And, we went to Hebrew Israelite 101, why there's no letter J in the Hebrew and why Jesus was not his name and why you have to know his name, because anyone that comes in his name falsely is not sent. So long story short, she was dumbfounded, and she did a wise thing. She sat down and she asked her husband, and her husband began to speak. And I posed the same question to him. And I want to share this with you because Brother Anthony Macklin asked me, how do you know when to speak? And this example will show you how the word, when the truth goes forth, will make demons lash out. It will cast out demons in a sense. It will hit that which is buried inside people that you don't know is there, and you have to be careful. This man was every bit probably in his 80s. Looked like, and from outward appearances, they looked like anyone's grandparents, sweet old couple, okay? Never would have thought. He had on some shades, and we were sitting spread out. And everyone else in the classroom wanted to know the answer to the question I posed. They couldn't answer it. And when he couldn't answer it, I gave the answer. I can't right now remember the specifics of it, but it had to do with the son's name, and it had to do with the commandments. When you go to the truth. And eventually this man got really upset with me, and he stood up and he started calling me out of my name. And when I saw this, I got kind of offended. I said, if you can't answer the question, then you shouldn't be teaching. And I said, moreover, if you know that book, you should know your wife should not be teaching, but you should be teaching. Long story short, I got up, and the man act out. You won't believe what he did. I'm going to tell you. And I wish, and I have witnesses to this. He got up and started cussing me out, calling me names, and listen to this. Turned around and pulled his pants down and said I could kiss his ass. And you know what I did? I got up and I looked at my friend Chris, and I said, this had to happen, because I said I didn't want to come in here. But I said she insisted that I come in, and I said it was needful for you to see this, to see how demons act out. This old man in his 80s, with some black dark shades on, literally mooned the class and told me that I could kiss his ass. And I think it's somewhere along the point, listen to this. I said, I'd appreciate it that you address me and look at me when you talk to me. And it was at that point, Chris leaned over and he said, hey man, I think he blind. And I said, what? The man was literally blind. And if that wasn't an example of the blind leading the blind, and I forget, the Spirit gave me the proper words. And I said, would you let a blind man lead you across the street? I literally said something like that. I said, now here's the clear case example of the blind leading the blind. Now listen to this. I walked out of the classroom, which was the cafeteria, and I think I went to the workout room. I might have got on the treadmill. I think I got 20 minutes on the treadmill. I went and talked with the security guard, but check it out. When I walked back past the cafeteria, he was still carrying out. Them demons in him was still talking loud, even to where some of the staff said, what's gotten into him? And somebody said Dale went in there and started preaching the truth to him, and they was laughing. You know, the people knew how I was. But that was a clear example. This man had so many demons in him. I never seen an elderly man act in such a way. And then moreover, he was blind. He just didn't know the book. And he should not have been teaching. Yet he was some old pastor from a church, had his wife, and his wife sat down quietly. Even she was embarrassed. I could see the look on her face. And I wanted to share this with you, Brother Anthony Macklin, because it brings clearly why His Majesty said, leave them alone, because they be blind leaders of the blind. And if the blind lead the blind, both shall fall into the ditch. I woke up, and like I said, the answer was given to me because this was an example that happened at Veterans Village. And your question was, when do you know when and when not to speak? Now, a lie, and I meant to say this in another video, and my camera kept cutting off. And I'm going to say this again. Just because you have been baptized or taught does not mean that you have the ability to teach or baptize. Let me say that again. Just because you've been baptized or taught by someone does not mean that it's been given to you to teach or baptize. And what that means is that, just like the parable of the sower of the seeds, I tell people that when you receive the truth, nourish it, separate yourself, and let it take root in you and get strong. It takes time. I've been in the truth for many years, and I've been in situations, and you have to be studied. But as long as you receive his name, Yahuwah is the beginning of the truth, and you understand the mystery of the Son's name, that's how you can spot false prophets. And then you have to have some foundation of knowledge of the scriptures, so that just like the Son said, he said, and I will send a comforter to you. And he said, which comes in my name, and she, not he, because the Holy Spirit is a woman, will bring all things into remembrance whatsoever I've spoken to you. That's the scriptures. When you encounter these situations, the words and the scriptures will come to you like that, and you will be given a mouth to speak that no man can deny. And it's just as the book says it was. They're not rehearsed. The scriptures will be given to you by the Ruach. But nevertheless, the scriptures, the word is likened like a double-edged sword. Every man has a physical heart that is the center of the body. Well, a man's soul is the center of a spirit. That spirit is a man, but that soul might be Curtis Jackson. And the soul might not, the name of that soul, which is Curtis Jackson, may have espoused a lie early in life. He may have been taught a lie. And just like any man marries a wife, when you espouse a lie, it's like you've become married to that lie. And just like any man will defend his wife if she's attacked, people will defend their lies in the face of the truth. And then there's a great conflict that happens when you speak to these people. There's a spiritual battle raging with their soul because they've become accustomed to this harlot that has been their wife that they've espoused, which is the lie. And then the truth is like a faithful, loyal wife. And she does battle with that lie. And that soul has to make a decision. Do I divorce this lie, this woman that I've been married to, and do I espouse the truth, or do I protect this lie and remain with it? And unfortunately, most people make the wrong decision to the peril of their soul. It is just that very bad. And people will fight to the death to defend that which they have espoused, which is a lie in most cases. But if they love the truth, they will see that lie. They'll be like, oh my God, I married a harlot, a whore. Get out of here. They'll divorce that whore. And then they will espouse the truth. And then they will become a whole different person. But that's how you have to be careful. Because just like His Majesty said, it's better for a millstone to be tied around a man's neck and he be cast into the depths of the sea than to mislead his people. And if you remember that troubling scene out of the movie Amistad, when those white European, the Europeans tied a big boulder and it had a long rope around the waist of maybe 5 to 7 slaves or more. And one of them was a woman with a child. And these things are real and they happen. And they pushed that boulder was so heavy he barely was able to push it off the deck. And when that boulder hit the depths of the sea, it snatched one of them overboard one by one. And then the camera showed you them kicking and fighting against the depths of the sea, drowning. And His Majesty said that would be better. And that boulder that they pushed off was nowhere the size of a millstone, which is 2 to 3 times that size. So there's a lack of fear of Yahuwah when people go out boldly and they mislead. Some do it out of ignorance, some do it out of strong delusion. And that's a spirit that the Most High gives them, because their deceivers have their purpose as well. Many of them have rejected the truth, or for whatever reason, that's their role, is to go out and deceive. But if you truly love the truth, you will love it and you will espouse it when you hear it. Therefore, you have to watch people. His Majesty said, cast not your pearls before swine, because some people are very violent and wicked, and they walk with demons. And the truth cast out, they provoke people's demons. And they will kill you. They will harm you. Just like I said, at one point I had the police called on me. I won't go into details because it's troubling. But when the police arrived there and I was still preaching the truth, they allowed me to go. And that's why most of the time when you preach the truth, you should move and remove yourself. Because if you cast your pearls unto swine, like His Majesty said, they'll not just eat the pearls, but they'll turn on you and rip you to pieces. So these are very serious and dangerous things. Don't be troubled at the fact that you can't answer everyone's questions. That comes with time, and it may or may not have been given to you. The amazing thing is that I woke up out of my sleep and I put on some clothes to be somewhat presentable. And when I looked at the clock, it was 12:12, and I looked in on the post, and you had asked me the very question from which I was prepared to make an answer for in the form of a video, because I was recalled in my sleep that which happened maybe 4 or 5 years ago at Veterans Village. And it was the most curious thing. I didn't even realize this elderly man was blind until I said, why is he talking all this craziness? And I said, I'd appreciate it. Because I said something to the effect, I said, I'd appreciate it if you look me in the eye when you talk. And he's like, man, I think he's blind. And I was like, wow. The man was not only physically blind, but he was spiritually blind. And he had very many devils in him. I mean, the man turned around. What type of elderly man drops his pants? The truth offended him so much, and he loved his lies that he had been brought up in. He couldn't separate it. That he dropped his pants and said, kiss my, you know what? Said, kiss, you can do this and do that. So I removed myself from those demons, and I left. And like I said, 20 minutes later I came back, he was still carrying on his rant and cursing. And I went upstairs and I told Chris, I said, it was good that you see this, that you saw this. I said, because I don't even go into classes like this, but I said, now you see how the false pastors of the Babylonian church act out. Those are the hardest ones so that's why His Majesty said, just leave them alone. And that's the example I wanted to share with you, and I hope you can gain from it. I can never articulate how it was to be there. If you were there and you saw it with your own 2 eyes, you would have seen firsthand a man who was comfortable with his demons and lies. He was sitting back in a chair with his arms folded, had his dark shade, like Ray Charles shades on, which it didn't occur to me. I thought he was just chilling. Pastors come pimping in there with shades. And his wife was doing all the preaching. And we know that it was never given to the women to preach. Never. So that was the first thing. And then when she got deeper with it, and she began to ask questions, I addressed that first. I said, first of all, you shouldn't be teaching. He should. And then I answered her question and then returned her answer with a question. And then she did the right thing as a wife. She sat down next to her husband and shut up. And she asked him, and he couldn't answer the question. And then he became irate, and the demons came out of him and really nasty. So, I hope that example helps you with, you have to discern people. And because most people in the earth are deceived, but the spiritual warfare comes when the truth is spoken through you as a tool, and it begins to do works in places that you can't see with the carnal eyes, and that's the soul, which is the heart of the spirit. The spirit that you're speaking to is a man, but the heart of the spirit is Dale. And within that soul, which is named Dale, I have espoused the truth, and I'm married to the truth. And that the truth is Yahuwah the Father, and his son, which is the word, is Yahuwah Shua. 5 utterances to his name. Any other name is false. That's how you spot the wolf. If they know not his name, they're not sent. How can you talk about someone and not know his name? How can you defend a man's ways if you don't know his name? His name has to come first. And that is why the baptism, as he said, go forth and teach, baptize people in the name of the Father. You have to know his name in order to teach it. And moreover, and more importantly, it has to be written upon your heart, not your physical heart, but your soul. That is your spiritual heart. When you die, your soul is that specific part of your spirit that lives on. It contains your personality, your beliefs, your doings, and your memories. And that is the true heart of man, is his soul. And that's why he said, well, what will it benefit a man if you gain the whole world and lose your soul? Or what will a man trade for his soul? That's that eternal part of man that lives forever. And it's very specific. The soul is the heart of the spirit, just as the heart is the center of the body. So with that, hopefully and prayerfully, you've gained something. And that was just an example. I kid you not. I couldn't go back to sleep until I woke up and at least made this video. But that stuck with me over the years. And even Chris, I nicknamed him Appetite. I think I told you why. But Chris is a very humble guy. Very humble guy. The Most High loves that type of spirit. And he received the truth. He was like a babe when I explained it to him, showed him the proof. And I believe he continues to walk in it today. But when he had doubts, he would always ask someone who knew better, and I would show him in the scriptures where he could find it before he answers someone, because you want to make sure your work is proper and your words are right when you teach or you answer someone. But he witnessed that, as well as some other people, and it was astonishing to look at. And that's why some people, when you talk to, and after you give them the truth, you have to remove yourself from their presence. And that's why most of the prophets, when they went into a place, they spoke and they left. Even His Majesty did that. He didn't remain among certain people too long. He taught privately the 12, but most people, he knew the spirit of all creation and of all men. He would speak some things and he would leave their presence. And some people he wouldn't even commit himself to. So with that, that's all I wanted to say in this video. I think, like I say, don't trouble yourself. Get to yourself. Let the word build strength in you. You're going to have a lot of griefs over the way. The word will divide you from family members, beloved, some, mothers, fathers, children, wives. I've had a lot of that happen. And it's a lonely walk.